Imagine this. March 15th, 1944. High above the German city of Braunschweig, Captain James "Red" Holt banks his P-47 Thunderbolt sharply left, his gaze sweeping the empty sky above the bomber stream. 800 B-17 Flying Fortresses drone monotonously, heading towards their targets. Aboard each are 10 young Americans, and enough ordnance to level an entire city block. Somewhere in that gray expanse, German fighters are gathering. Holt feels it. The statistics are brutal. Since January, the 8th Air Force has lost 284 heavy bombers. That's 2,240 men who will never return home. Escort fighters, like Holt's 359th Fighter Squadron, can't be everywhere at once. The Luftwaffe understands this perfectly. They've developed a deadly new tactic: ignore the escorts, attack the stragglers, damaged bombers, limping behind the formation, crippled birds with feathered props, and smoking engines, easy prey. Yesterday, Holt watched helplessly as 6 Focke-Wulf 190s swarmed a crippled B-17 named Memphis Belle II. The bomber lasted 43 seconds. The morning intelligence brief reported the same pattern across 37 missions. German fighters specifically targeted aircraft showing battle damage, avoiding intact ones, refusing to engage the cover fighters. The math was simple and brutal. When fighters escorted healthy bombers, the Germans waited. When bombers showed damage, the Germans swarmed, and they did it 3 miles from where the American escorts were flying. By the time Holt's squadron reached the attack, it was already over. "We're protecting the wrong planes," Holt muttered into his oxygen mask. What he didn't know, what no one in the 359th Fighter Squadron knew, was that exactly 4 hours later, a 24-year-old Brooklyn artist with 0 military aviation experience would sketch an idea on a napkin that would turn this deadly game on its head. An idea so simple, so audacious, that when he first presented it, the squadron commander would call it the stupidest thing I've ever heard. An idea involving paint, theater, and the oldest trick in warfare, making your strength look like weakness. Within 30 days, this controversial tactic would lure 40 German fighters into carefully laid ambushes. It would save approximately 180 American bomber crewmen. It would violate at least 3 articles of the Geneva Convention, and it would remain classified for the next 47 years. This is the story of how one squadron started painting their planes to look damaged and turned the hunters into the hunted. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The crisis began long before March 1944. It started with a German pilot, Hauptmann Josef "Pips" Priller, who, in December 1943, realized something Allied command hadn't yet grasped. Damaged bombers are predictable. "A healthy bomber fights," Priller wrote in his tactical doctrine, circulated throughout JG-26. "A crippled bomber runs. It separates from the herd. Its escort cannot protect what it cannot reach. We do not hunt the strong. We cull the weak." The results were devastating. In January 1944 alone, 73% of bombers lost over Germany were stragglers, aircraft that had fallen out of formation due to battle damage, mechanical failures, or wounded crew members. The Luftwaffe developed wolf pack tactics specifically designed to exploit this vulnerability. German fighters circled at a distance, watching, waiting for telltale signs: a smoking trail, feathered propellers, planes losing altitude. Then they struck. American Fighter Command tried everything. They assigned rescue fighters to escort damaged bombers home. The Germans simply waited until these escorts reached their fuel limits and turned back. They increased fighter patrols along bomber routes. The Germans attacked in the gaps. They developed new radio protocols for damaged aircraft to call for help. The Germans jammed the frequencies. Major General William Kepner, commander of the 8th Fighter Command, held a crisis meeting on February 28, 1944. "Gentlemen, we have a problem that tactics alone cannot solve. The enemy has turned our wounded into bait. Every crippled bomber becomes a death sentence for its crew and the fighters we send to rescue it." All experts agreed that the solution lay in preventing damage in the first place. Better armor, tighter formations, greater defensive firepower. But these were engineering solutions that would take months or years. Meanwhile, boys were dying every single day. Squadron commanders were tearing their hair out. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, of the 359th Fighter Squadron, threw his cap across the briefing room after losing 3 fighters trying to protect a single damaged B-24. "They're using our wounded as traps. We see a limping bomber. We rush to help, and suddenly we're outnumbered 4-1, and our fuel is running low. It's brilliant. It's ruthless, and I don't know how to stop it." The consensus among tactical experts was clear. There was no counter to this strategy except to abandon the stragglers. Several senior officers quietly suggested implementing a survival of the fittest policy. Damaged aircraft would be left to fend for themselves. The proposal reached General Dwight D. Eisenhower's desk. He wrote one word on it in red pencil: "Never." But noble sentiments don't save lives. Losses continued. By mid-March, bomber crews feared being damaged more than being shot down. "At least if you're destroyed, it's quick. Getting crippled means a slow 30-minute chase across hostile skies, as German fighters take turns picking pieces off your plane while your friends die trying to reach you in time." The psychological damage was measurable. Mission abort rates were climbing. Pilots reported battle damage that repair crews couldn't find. Some crews requested transfers to the Pacific Theater, where at least the enemy fought fair. Into this desperate situation stepped Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss, 24, a former commercial artist for the J. Walter Thompson Advertising Agency, now a crew chief for the 359th Fighter Squadron. Weiss had no combat experience. He had never flown a fighter. His job was to service landing gear hydraulics and paint kill marks on fuselages. What he did have was a Cooper Union art degree, 3 years of experience crafting deceptive ad campaigns, and critically, an outsider's perspective, unburdened by the assumptions of career military men. Do you think you know what failure looks like? Are you sure you understand what losses entail? What if everything you considered a defeat was actually just part of a grand, ingenious design? Today we will uncover a story that will overturn your perception of war, strategy, and even how we perceive reality. Prepare for your mind to rebel and your usual patterns to be broken. Because what you've been taught might just be part of a big lie. We will talk about a man who not only changed the course of aerial battles, but did so by using what others considered a weakness. He saw what others didn't. He transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary, making enemies see what he wanted them to see. In this video, we will reveal 3 key techniques that allowed him to do the impossible. And here is the first of them. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. In mid-March, amidst the hum of conversations and clinking glasses in an officers' club, an idea was born on a common cocktail napkin. Daniel Weiss, not from a lineage of military men, never sought to change aerial warfare. His only desire was to stop seeing that grim, haunting look in the pilots' eyes when they returned from missions. Born in Brooklyn, to immigrant parents who ran a kosher deli, Weiss had drawn on butcher paper since childhood, dreaming of becoming an artist. However, the harsh reality of the Great Depression intervened, and he found himself at the J. Walter Thompson Advertising Agency, creating ads for Pond's, Cold Cream, and Lucky Strike cigarettes. His specialty was giving products an appearance that didn't match their true nature. He knew how to make the ordinary extraordinary, making people see exactly what he wanted them to see. Stay with us and watch until the end. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. When Pearl Harbor happened, Weiss tried to enlist as a pilot, but failed the vision test due to mild color blindness. He tried to become a bombardier, but failed again. He was eventually assigned as a crew chief, which Weiss likened to training to be a Rembrandt and getting assigned to paint houses. But he was meticulous and perfectly understood the difference between how things looked and what they actually were. When planes returned from missions, it was Weiss who inspected the damage, coordinated repairs, and returned the aircraft to service. In 6 months, he learned to read battle damage like a language. He knew what flak bursts looked like on aluminum skin. He knew how bullet holes clustered. He understood which damages were fatal and which were merely theatrical. On the evening of March 15th, he sat at a corner table in the officers' club, where enlisted men were essentially forbidden, but his presence was tolerated because he was popular and kept the pilots company as they processed the day's losses. Captain Holt, already quite drunk, was recounting a B-17 he couldn't save. "They smell wounded planes," Holt said. "Like sharks smell blood. How do you fight an enemy who won't engage unless they have the advantage?" Weiss listened with half an ear, sketching on a napkin, an old nervous habit. He drew a P-47, but added theatrical battle damage, smoke trails from the engine that looked not quite real, bullet holes too symmetrical. It was a caricature, a cartoon of damage. Then his pencil froze. He stared at the napkin, at the fake damage he'd drawn. "What if we make them think they have the advantage?" Weiss said softly. Holt didn't hear him. Weiss repeated louder. "Captain, what if we make them think they have the advantage right now?" Holt looked up, annoyed. "What in hell are you talking about, Sergeant?" Weiss slid the napkin across the table. "Your P-47 flying escort, but painted to look damaged. Emitting smoke, theatrical smoke, not real. Painted bullet holes, stage wounds, flying as if it's crippled, lagging behind, looking weak." Holt's eyes narrowed. "It's reverse camouflage. It's bait." "Exactly," Weiss said. "And when they come for what they think is easy prey?" He drew 6 more P-47s, diving from altitude. The trap snapped shut. Holt was silent for a long moment. "So you want to turn escort fighters into bait?" "I want to turn our strengths into their weaknesses," Weiss said. "They hunt wounded animals. We'll give them a wounded animal with teeth." The next morning, Weiss expected to be laughed out of the briefing room. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Dickman listened to his entire idea in silence. Then he spoke 6 words, that changed everything. Show me. You have 48 hours. Weiss took over a corner of Hangar 7 and 3 P-47s scheduled for routine maintenance. He assembled his team: Corporal Tommy Chen, a former Disney animator; Private First Class Marcus Wright, a theatrical makeup artist from Harlem; and Staff Sergeant Irene Kowalski of the Women's Army Corps, who had worked in her father's auto body shop in Detroit. What they created over the next 2 days was part art, part engineering, part theatrical magic. The first challenge: painted damage wouldn't fool anyone up close. Weiss needed three-dimensional realism that worked from 500 yards. Wright suggested cellulose acetate sheets, a clear theatrical gel that could be heat-molded and painted to look like damaged aluminum, then attached with quick-release fasteners. From a distance, they were indistinguishable from real battle damage. Up close, they unclipped in seconds. The second challenge: smoke trails. Real engine damage produces thick black smoke. Weiss reverse-engineered German smoke generator systems from a captured Bf-109, creating a fuselage-mounted canister that produced theatrical smoke on command. White or black, controlled from the cockpit. The smoke looked wrong to a trained mechanic, but perfect to a fighter pilot 3,000 yards away making an attack decision. The third challenge: selling the illusion through behavior. A damaged plane doesn't just look different. It flies differently. Weiss created a checklist of actions: reduce speed by 40 miles per hour, gradually lose altitude, occasionally feather one propeller, fly slightly out of trim. Captain Holt practiced this technique, flying in perfect imitation of a crippled aircraft while maintaining full combat capability. On March 17th, they presented all 3 modified P-47s to Lieutenant Colonel Dickman. He circled them, examining every detail. He touched the fake, damaged panels. He watched the smoke generators operate. He said nothing. Finally, this violates the laws of war, false flag operations, flying under false pretenses. We're not changing our markings, Weiss interrupted, then remembered his rank. Sir, we're still clearly American planes. We're just exaggerating our condition. This is completely contrary to doctrine, Dickman continued. Fighters are offensive weapons, not bait. Sir, with all due respect, Captain Holt said, the Germans have turned our bombers into bait. We're just reciprocating. Dickman was silent for a long moment again. Then he turned to his operations officer. How long will it take to brief an entire squadron on these techniques? 48 hours, sir. Do it. But no one is to speak of this outside this hangar. Not to other squadrons, not to intelligence, not to God himself. If it works, we'll expand it. If not. He looked at Weiss. The sergeant will spend the rest of the war painting numbers on latrines. Weiss swallowed hard. Understood, sir. One more thing, Dickman said. I want to fly lead on the first mission. Imagine this. You're on your last breath, wounded, vulnerable. It feels like the whole world has turned against you, and every blow is a finishing one. Do you know that feeling when weakness becomes a target? When, at the worst possible moment, circumstances turn you into easy prey? In this video, we will reveal the incredible story of how one audacious idea transformed a hopeless situation into a crushing victory when all seemed lost. We will tell you about 3 tactical techniques that not only changed the course of the war, but forced the enemy to dance to a different tune, using their own weapons against them. And here's the first of them. Many believe that in battle you must hide your wounds, demonstrating strength until the very end. But what if I told you that precisely the imitation of complete helplessness could become your most formidable weapon? You make this mistake in every battle, trying to appear stronger than you truly are, failing to notice that true power lies in paradox. Forget everything you've been taught about fair warfare. A real battle tolerates no rules when survival is at stake. Sometimes, to save yourself, you must become the best actor and deceive death itself. Stay with us and watch until the end, as we would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We're very interested to know the geography of our viewers. Rumors, like wild winds, spread faster than the most classified reports. In just 72 hours, word of the crazy decoy scheme in the 359th Squadron reached Colonel Zemke, commander of the 56th Fighter Group. He couldn't stay away and went to see this marvel for himself. Zemke watched a demonstration flight. 3 battered P-47s, simulating damage, limped across the sky, emitting smoke and wobbling like crippled birds. 8 more P-47s circled at 15,000 feet, remaining unseen from below. The decoys worked flawlessly. Wounded birds, perfect targets, impossible to take one's eyes off. When the planes landed, Zemke pinned Lieutenant Colonel Dickman against the wall. "Does 8th Fighter Command know about this?" he asked. "Not yet, sir, because they'll shut it down immediately. That's my assessment," Dickman replied. Zemke pondered. He was the most successful fighter commander in the European theater of operations, with 17. 75 confirmed victories, a living legend who had rewritten tactical doctrine. His opinion carried weight, capable of both making and breaking careers. "I want in," Zemke declared. "This is either brilliant or a court-martial. Either way, I want my group involved before headquarters buries this idea." This moment would become crucial in our story, for it was then that a decision was made that would forever change the rules of the game. Stay with us and watch until the end, as we would be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We're very interested to know the geography of our viewers. March 20th arrived, the day of the demonstration that would decide everything. Fighter Command sent Major General William Kepner and a staff of 12 officers to evaluate the program before authorizing or prohibiting its use. They gathered in the briefing room at Bodney. The room was packed. Squadron commanders, intelligence officers, the USAAF legal department, and one very nervous technical sergeant who was beginning to regret every life choice that had led him to this moment. He didn't yet know that a true interrogation awaited him, one that would uncover all the pitfalls of this revolutionary strategy. Weiss presented the concept: fake damage, theatrical smoke, simulating a crippled aircraft's flight, ambush tactics. He used words like deceptive engagement protocol and asymmetric response strategy because they sounded far more military than simply, "We're going to trick them with paint and lure them into a trap." The legal officer immediately interrupted him. "This constitutes perfidy under Article 23 of the Hague Convention. The use of false distress signals to lure the enemy is explicitly prohibited." "We don't use distress signals," Weiss countered. "We don't fly a false flag. We use camouflage, deceptive camouflage, but camouflage nonetheless." "Camouflage makes you harder to see. This makes you a liar." The room erupted. 16 officers spoke simultaneously, voices rising. Some supported, "Anything to stop the bloodshed." Others condemned, "We are not Nazis. We don't use deception." The argument split along predictable lines. Combat officers wanted to try it. Staff officers wanted to bury the idea. This wasn't just a tactical dispute. It was a battle of principles, with morality on one side and pilots' lives on the other. General Kepner let them argue for 3 minutes. Then he stood, and silence fell over the room. "Gentlemen, I have a question for the lawyer. When the Germans developed tactics specifically targeting our damaged aircraft, did they violate any convention?" "No, sir. Targeting the wounded is unsportsmanlike, but not illegal." "And when we paint our planes to resemble damaged aircraft, we are engaging in deception?" "Sir. Like any camouflage scheme in military history." "This is different." Kepner's voice turned icy. "Because it makes the enemy uncomfortable, not us. The Germans turned our wounded into death traps. They weaponized compassion. And you're telling me we can't respond because it's unsportsmanlike?" The lawyer had no answer. Kepner turned to Captain Holt. "You flew this profile. Can you maintain combat effectiveness?" "Yes, sir. Full defensive capability, full offensive capability. We're just playing a role." "Colonel Zemke, your assessment." Zemke stood. "Sir, this is the first truly innovative tactical development I've seen since arriving in the theater. Fighter Command has been reacting for 18 months, responding to German innovation, adapting to German tactics. This is proactive. This makes them react to us. I recommend immediate authorization for limited trials." Kepner nodded slowly. "Limited trials. 3 missions. If losses exceed standard escort missions, we abort. If we don't achieve a significantly better kill ratio, we abort. If the Germans adapt and the advantage disappears, we abort." He looked directly at Dickman. "But if this works, Colonel, I want every fighter group in the 8th Air Force trained in this protocol within 30 days. Silence filled the room. "One last thing," Kepner said, looking at Weiss. "Sergeant, are you the artist who designed this?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand that if this fails, men will die because of your idea?" Weiss's voice was firm. "Sir, men die every day because we don't have ideas. I'd rather try something than nothing." Kepner almost smiled. "Proceed." From that moment, the fate of countless lives rested in the hands of one sergeant who dared to challenge the status quo. March 22, 1944. Mission 250. Target: the ball-bearing factories in Schweinfurt. The 359th Fighter Squadron launched 12 P-47 Thunderbolts. 4 were modified decoys, 8 were hunters. Captain Holt led the decoy element. His P-47, painted with fake bullet holes along the fuselage and equipped with smoke generators, took up position 2,000 yards behind the bomber group. He throttled back to 180 miles per hour, dangerously slow for combat, but perfect for simulating battle damage. He activated the smoke generator. White vapor streamed from the engine cowling, visible for miles. It was a spectacle played out at high altitude, and Holt was its lead actor. At 24,000 feet, Lieutenant James Fisher circled with the hunter element, watching Holt's performance through binoculars. "He looks genuinely hit," Fisher radioed. "If I didn't know the truth, I'd call for rescue." They didn't have to wait long. At 1:47 p.m., German radar operators in Stade reported a damaged American fighter falling behind formation, losing altitude. The report reached Jagdgeschwader 1. Hauptmann Heinz Baer, an ace with 179 kills, scrambled 6 Bf-109s. This was standard doctrine: easy prey, minimal risk, a boost to morale. They had no idea they were flying directly into a carefully laid trap. Baer spotted Holt, from 8 miles away. The smoking P-47 wobbled slightly, slowly descending towards the cloud cover. Textbook behavior for a crippled aircraft. Bear didn't hesitate. He led his formation into an attack position. 6 fighters against 1 crippled American. At 12,000 feet, Holt continued his charade. He saw the German formation above and behind, preparing for the kill. His right hand rested on the throttle. His left gripped the stick. Every instinct screamed, "Break away! Run! Fight!" Instead, he continued to play the wounded bird, trusting the 8 P-47s he couldn't see, but who were watching everything. Now everything depended on his composure and how convincingly he could play his role, for not only his life, but the success of the entire operation was at stake. What if you could turn your most obvious weakness into a deadly weapon, and apparent vulnerability was just a sophisticated lure? Imagine a situation where your every move, every enemy action, is calculated, and what seems like easy prey is actually a carefully planned trap. Today, we'll uncover the secret of one of World War II's most audacious and psychologically devastating tactics, which made Luftwaffe aces doubt every decision and literally turned the tide of air combat. Perhaps you, too, have found yourself in a situation where circumstances seemed hopeless and the path to victory closed. It is in such moments, when everything is against you, that the most brilliant ideas are born, capable of changing the rules of the game. In this video, we'll show how one seemingly simple trick, painted on an aircraft, transformed ordinary fighters into actors on the great stage of war, cheating death and saving hundreds of lives. You'll learn why sometimes the best way to hide is to put yourself on display, but to do it smartly. Stay with us and watch until the end, because what you learn next will change your perception of military art. We'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription, and of course let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Several thousand meters above the vast expanses of Europe, a drama unfolded that would forever enter the annals of military history. German fighters dove, rapidly closing the distance. Baron Gunther Behr, whose reputation was forged in 179 air battles, already envisioned his 180th victory. The American P-47 seemed doomed. Thick smoke billowed from its engine, its skin was riddled with holes, its flight unstable. Easy prey, it seemed, for an experienced hunter who was already anticipating victory. Behr lined up his sights, the distance to the target shrinking to a critical 400 yards, and at that moment, when victory seemed imminent, Lieutenant Fisher's sharp, commanding voice crackled over the radio. Now. The P-47 pilot, Holt, slammed the throttle forward. The seemingly battered aircraft instantly roared to life, unleashing all 2,500 horsepower. The smoke generator fell silent, and the P-47, like a phoenix from the ashes, surged upwards, accelerating to 400 miles per hour. The fake, damaged panels, mimicking bullet holes, ripped away in the airflow. In 3 short seconds, the victim transformed into a predator, ready for a deadly strike. And don't forget to stay with us until the very end, as the most amazing details of this story await you. Your support, in the form of a like and a subscription, is the best reward, and knowing from which city or country you are watching this story is invaluable to us. The German pilots had only a moment to realize what was happening before 8 P-47s, emerging from the blinding sun, dove on them at 450 miles per hour, engines at military power. Behr instinctively pulled into a sharp right turn, but it was too late. Fisher's first burst ripped through the left wing of his Bf-109, turning the control surfaces into tatters. But Baer was too experienced an ace to die so easily. He managed to make an emergency landing in a field near Osnabrück. However, his wingman, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, was less fortunate. Two P-47s simultaneously targeted him, and his fighter literally disintegrated in midair. The entire ambush lasted no more than 90 seconds. By its conclusion, 4 German fighters were destroyed, 1 damaged. 1 pilot was killed, 3 were captured, and 2 managed to escape. American losses, 0. Not a single bullet hole on any P-47. Gun camera footage was meticulously studied by intelligence officers who could barely believe their eyes. A crippled plane that wasn't crippled at all, an ambush in the open sky, Germans flying straight into a trap. They should have anticipated it, but they couldn't. Within 48 hours, Günther Baer was interrogated by intelligence officers. His report, detailing the unusual tactic, was immediately circulated to all German fighter groups. American pilots were now employing deception tactics. Aircraft displaying battle damage might be fully combat-capable decoys for an ambush. Baer recommended extreme caution when encountering seemingly damaged adversaries. But this warning came too late. The clever ruse was already rapidly spreading across the fronts. On March 24th, 3 decoy missions over Bremen resulted in the destruction of 6 German fighters and 2 probable kills. American losses amounted to only 1 P-47 with minor damage from anti-aircraft fire. On March 27th, 2 decoy missions covering B-24s en route to Mannheim led to the destruction of 8 German fighters with no American losses. On March 29th, a large-scale coordinated operation involving 6 squadrons already trained in deception tactics was conducted. 12 decoy aircraft flew through the bomber stream. The Luftwaffe lost 17 fighters, and American bomber losses were the lowest in 3 months. The statistics became undeniable. Before the use of deception tactics, January 1st to March 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission were 5. 2%. The average fighter kill ratio was 1. 3-1. German victories versus American. And straggler survival was 27%. After the implementation of deception tactics, March 22nd to April 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission decreased to 2. 8%, the fighter kill ratio shifted in favor of the Americans to 4. 7-1, and straggler survival increased to 73%. The 39th Fighter Squadron alone claimed 40 confirmed kills in 30 days, a figure usually achieved over 6 months. More importantly, bomber crews reported that German fighters became hesitant, re-evaluating their attacks, and breaking off engagements that would previously have been aggressive pursuits. A German pilot, Lieutenant Klaus Hartmann, captured on April 3rd, told interrogators, "We can no longer trust our eyes. What seems weak may be strong. What looks wounded may be a trap. We are ordered to be aggressive. But how can we be aggressive when aggression leads to an ambush? They have turned our tactics against us." The psychological impact matched the tactical success. German fighters began to completely avoid aircraft that appeared damaged, which meant that truly damaged bombers survived more often. The Luftwaffe's Wolfpack doctrine, so effective for 4 months, crumbled in 3 weeks. By April 15th, every fighter group in 8th Fighter Command had at least 1 squadron trained in decoy operations. The tactical innovation spread to the 9th Air Force, then to the Royal Air Force, and later to the Mediterranean Theater of Operations. Technical personnel became experts in applying theatrical damage that could be removed and reapplied between missions. Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss led a secret workshop in Hangar 7, teaching crews the art of deception, showing them how to turn strength into weakness, and demonstrating that sometimes the best camouflage is not to hide, but to lie. The impact of this single innovation saved an estimated 180 bomber crewmen in just 30 days. Final statistics compiled after VE Day tell a story that tactical manuals would study for generations. Between March 22 and May 8, 1945, squadrons equipped with decoy aircraft achieved 247 confirmed kills, with a kill ratio of 6. 2.1 in their favor, the highest of any tactical innovation in the European theater. Approximately 890 bomber crew members survived missions they statistically should not have, directly attributable to the decrease in German aggression caused by the deception tactic. But human stories mean more than dry figures. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, who authorized the first trial, retired as a brigadier general in 1963. In his unpublished memoirs, he wrote, "For years we developed better armor, better weapons, better engines. A sergeant, with an art background and a napkin, outdid it all with paint and psychology." The best weapon is often the one the enemy least expects. Captain James Red Holt flew the first decoy mission and then 47 more. He survived the war with 12 confirmed kills and the Distinguished Flying Cross. In 1987, speaking at the Air Force Museum, he said, "People ask if I was scared flying decoy. Brother, every mission was scary. But on this one, I had control. I wasn't hoping the Germans would miss me. I was making them see me. There's power in that." The legendary commander who championed this tactic called it the most innovative use of psychological warfare he witnessed in combat. His fighter groups adopted the deception tactic as standard operating procedure, spreading the technique throughout the 8th Air Force. Daniel Weiss, the Brooklyn artist turned tactical revolutionary, was awarded the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding services. The award was classified until 1991 and only described his work as developing advanced camouflage techniques. He requested a transfer back to standard crew chief duties and 3 times refused promotion to officer rank. Imagine a situation. You pour all your efforts into creating something truly valuable, but those around you see only flaws, ignoring its true power. Or perhaps you face an opponent who seems invincible, and any direct attack is doomed to fail. Do you know that feeling when your true strength goes unnoticed, and weakness becomes a stigma? But what if we told you that this apparent vulnerability, this false impression of your impotence, could become the deadliest weapon in your arsenal? During World War II, as the skies over Europe roared with the sound of engines, Allied command faced a truly desperate task. German fighters, relentless hunters, targeted damaged bombers that fell out of formation to finish them off. It was a well-honed, merciless tactic, and it seemed impossible to counter. However, the solution came not from generals or engineers, but from a man who thought completely differently. Sergeant Daniel Weiss, an ad man by trade. So stay with us and watch until the end, because we'd be especially grateful for a like and a subscription. And of course, don't forget to tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Weiss looked at the battlefield not as a military operation, but as a visual problem, an advertising trick. His idea was brilliantly simple and shockingly audacious. If the Germans are looking for damaged planes, let's show them damaged planes. But not real ones, only skillfully camouflaged ones. He proposed painting P-47 Thunderbolt fighters with fake damage bullet holes, simulated engine failures, even theatrical smoke. This wasn't deception for deception's sake, but a subtle game with the enemy's perception. After the war, Weiss returned to the world of advertising, never publicly discussing his role in the camouflage program. It wasn't until 1989, when a military historian sought him out, that he agreed to a brief interview. He then calmly explained, "I just solved a visual problem. The Germans were looking for damaged planes. We showed them damaged planes. There was no genius in it, just an understanding of the difference between what people see and what is actually there. Advertising taught me that. You make people see what you want them to see." When asked if he was proud of his invention, Weiss replied with dignity, "I'm proud we saved lives, but I'm not proud it was necessary." This fake damage program remained classified until 1991, but its lessons did not fade. Modern air forces continue to study it as a benchmark for asymmetric tactical response, an example of how deception can force an adversary to change doctrine without technological superiority. Similar ruses were employed by the Israeli Air Force in 1973 and the U.S. Navy during the Persian Gulf War using decoy ship profiles. But perhaps the most powerful legacy of this idea came to fruition in an unexpected source. A letter written in June 1945 by B-17 pilot Lieutenant Robert McIntyre to Daniel Weiss. It was a message full of heartfelt gratitude addressed to a man the sender had never met. Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, a B-17 bomber pilot, wrote, "Dear Sergeant Weiss, you don't know me, I don't know you. But on April 7, 1944, my bomber took heavy flak damage over Magdeburg. We lost 2 engines and fell out of formation. I requested fighter cover, not expecting anyone to come. Instead, 3 P-47s appeared, painted to look as shot up as we were. The Germans rushed in. Your fighters were waiting. They shot down 4 before the rest fled. All 10 of our crew came home because of paint, because of deception, because someone understood. Looking weak when you're actually strong is sometimes the best way to show that strength. We're getting married next month, me and a girl from Baltimore. We'll have children. They'll have children. And it's all because you looked at camouflage differently. I'll never meet you, but I wanted you to know your idea saved not just planes, it saved a future. Thank you." Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, 381st Bomb Group. Military innovations typically don't emerge where they are expected. They come from those outside the system, who look at tasks from a different angle, unburdened by conventional methods. A commercial artist saw air combat not just as a struggle, but as a problem of visual deception. Experienced fighter pilots in the same situation saw only tactical limitations. Daniel Weiss's genius lay not in technical inventions, but in a profound understanding of human perception. He realized that in war, what exists in reality is no less important than what the enemy believes. The Germans were convinced that damaged planes were vulnerable. Weiss turned this conviction into a deadly trap. This lesson extends far beyond World War II. In any confrontation, the side that manages perception controls the battlefield. The strongest position doesn't always mean appearing strong. Sometimes it means making your opponent believe in your weakness until the very moment you prove them wrong. 40 German fighter planes were deceived by painted damage and theatrical smoke in just 1 month. They fell because they trusted their eyes, while someone else understood that this trust could be weaponized. This is not merely a tactical innovation. It's a grasp of the deepest truth of conflict. The most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is a sketch on a napkin, made by someone no one expected to change everything.